Hey guys, welcome to David vs. Film. I am David, yo soy David, and tonight we are spilling the peach tea on your comments for The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. I started doing this segment of spilling the peach tea for Fellowship. You guys responded well to it. I was glad to hear that because I had so much fun doing it. So I'm definitely happy to be back doing another edition for Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. So when I first saw Two Towers, I have to say it got me really excited to continue the series. I would say that the three movies are all to level 10. Okay, so there's just no debate about that. They're all to level 10. I know you guys, if you're watching this video, you're probably going to agree with me on that. But within that 10, if I had to rank them, I would say that Two Towers comes in just behind Return of the King as my second favorite. Fellowship was really great. Don't get me wrong. Again, all 10s. But it was more of an introduction. It got me into this series. But I would say Two Towers is what really sealed the deal. The battle at Helm's Deep, the Ents, Isengard, all of that just really came together in the end and got me really pumped to watch Return of the King, which of course did not disappoint. But tonight we're here to talk about your comments. I wanted to go a little bit further with them than I usually do in the YouTube comment section. If you saw the previous video for Fellowship, I'll link that right now if you haven't. Then you know the format of this is going to be that I want to kind of group comments together. Several of you said the same things, and I want to expand further on that. I've picked out others that I just think might need a little bit more commenting on, kind of getting a little bit deeper into what I meant, maybe when I said something, as well as this time including one that was really negative. Most of you guys are so great, and you've left the nicest things to say, but there's one in here that was not as nice, let's just say. So we'll get to that one as well. But I'm going to go a little bit longer with this one because you guys did do well in the first video and said that you were fine with the time on that. So I did expand the comments I've selected. Feel free to hop off if it's getting lengthy and you don't really want to watch all of this, but you never know if your comment might be next. So just kind of keep that in mind. But without further ado, we're going to jump right in. I've got my peach tea. So let us start with comment number 1. And it comes from Aaron Kern, my good friend Aaron, who writes, I was lucky enough to have had a nerdy mother who introduced me to these movies when I was a kid. I'm 21 now. But if you ever have questions, the lore is pretty extensive, and there are a million people on the internet who can't wait to spew Lord of the Rings info your way. He is so right about that. And I wanted to pick this comment to basically say how much I appreciate you guys going into detail with your thoughts, with the information, with the behind the scenes. You have been so good about that for all the films. But this was one where, as the story started getting in a little bit deeper than the first one, I really needed that feedback and I really needed those comments. So I certainly appreciate that. But he's right about that. I definitely want to read the books and have the full background from that. I would like to watch the behind the scenes, which so many of you have just made it very clear I need to watch. But I definitely wanted to echo what he wrote, that there are plenty of people out here to give me information, as you guys have all done. So thank you. Next, we have Bob Blumenfeld. Bob writes, the CGI for Gollum was accomplished from motion capture on Andy Serkis. By the way, the Gollum we see in The Two Towers and Return of the King happens to be Gollum version 2. They discarded the first version somewhere between Fellowship and The Two Towers. I had no idea. Didn't even notice. So that either means that I'm not paying attention like I should be, which I highly doubt because I'm very good, right? I'm very good. Or they were just so good at Gollum 2.0 that I didn't notice. We'll go with that. Okay, for my own well-being, we'll go with that. But yeah, this also is a comment that I picked to go, once again, sound like a broken record, about the special effects, which were just so great. And Gollum by far stands out as just truly extraordinary when it comes to that. So Boyd writes, I'm learning Espanol at the moment, and something confuses me. Why do you say yo soy David instead of just saying soy David? Doesn't soy mean I am? Yes, Boyd, you are 100% right. When I started doing the YouTube channel, I honestly thought nobody would watch. I thought maybe I'd reach maybe 4 or 5 people and they'd all be my family. And Yo Soy David is kind of a nod to my in-laws because they are of Mexican heritage. And so they're Spanish speaking and I am not. So about all I know how to say is soy David, donde está el baño. You know, all the things you learn in high school is about the extent of my Spanish. So when I say yo soy David, it's kind of like an inside joke to my family because I'm so bad at Spanish. And to your point right there, yes, Yo Soy David is redundant. It's technically okay to say from what I understand, but saying Soy David would definitely be the faster way to get there. Yes. And this also is an example of some of the questions I've added, which might not necessarily have to do with just Two Towers, but are relative. And these comments did come from the Two Towers video. So that's kind of why if you hear some of these that might not be 100% seemingly attached to Two Towers, that's kind of where I'm getting it from. So hopefully you guys don't mind if I kind of color outside the lines a little bit there. Fez writes, for this movie and the next, most of the horse riders are actually female extras with fake beards because not enough men owned horses in New Zealand or were proficient enough riders. So they called up all the women too. You can see them in the appendices extras. They all had a great time, and I think everyone in New Zealand knows someone who is an extra, because I know I do. Yes, this was one comment that so many of you wrote, and I found that to be really interesting. It makes sense, but I would have never noticed. Kind of like the Gollum thing. I don't know if they just blurred the background or they just kind of enhanced things behind the scenes during the editing, whatever. I would have never known had you guys not told me that. But I think that is awesome, and I think that, you know, it's like sisters doing it, I guess, when there weren't enough guys taking care of it. So kudos to them. Next, we have that Spencer from Earth. The budget for all three films was like 280 something million. I remember watching the special features of the DVDs when they came out, and there were a couple of things that I remember. At several points, they had 3 different camera crews with directors in different locations filming. The chainmail you see in the films was put together by hand by 3 people, and they now do not have fingerprints on 3 fingers, lawsuit, because they rubbed off. Good Lord. Third, there were huge breakfasts in the morning where over 1,000 eggs were served to cast and crew every day. That's actually why I pulled it, because I found that fascinating. Although reading it back now, the fingerprint thing really is more sort of disturbing to me. But wow, that is a testament to how much went into this film. And also the fact that they had 3 different filming crews at any given moment with 3 different directors, or I guess assistant directors, technically, something like that. Just again goes to the scope of this production, and I cannot even imagine the cost, which I guess he tells me is 280 million, something like that. And that echoes what several of you said, around 300 million total cost for the films. But I always think, and I think I said this in the last video, but if I didn't, I always think when you see the credits rolling and all those people's names, and I'm thinking all those you have to get paid, including the guy that cooks all those eggs. If I were Peter Jackson, I'd be like every night I go to bed. Every night I go to bed, I'd be like, what am I doing? So thank you, that Spencer from Earth, for telling me that, because that really did put things in perspective. So this next comment comes from one of my besties in the whole world, and I'm going to protect people's names by just going by their YouTube handles that they provide, just in case that's a thing. I don't know. Some people care, some people don't. So just be respectful. I'll include only the YouTube handles, but it's Witch from the North. And I love her so much. She's been with me since the beginning of the channel. So supportive. Thank you, thank you, thank you. She writes, yay, I will however watch this tomorrow because it is late here. Hope you're doing well and let us have an amazing week. So I pulled this comment because, again, it does come from the Two Towers video, so it is technically relevant. But also in case you watch future videos so that you have an idea of how I go about when I release these videos and upload them to YouTube. There are basically 2 factors I look at. One is where the majority of my viewers are watching and what time they're watching. Usually my majority of viewers tend to watch between 12 and 2 in the afternoon, Central Time, where I'm in Houston. So I try to upload on that time period. It might be different days, but I try to stick with that general time period, maybe a little bit earlier, only because of the way that YouTube indexes and categorizes the videos to make sure I get put into the rotation. That's a factor as well. But another thing, and this has actually become the biggest one lately, the more YouTube starts really, really hammering down on copyright violations, it makes it difficult to post something because it'll just come down an hour or in some cases even days later. So for those of you who don't know, I'll get technical for a minute. If you want to go grab a sandwich and come back, feel free. The way that YouTube does it, they have a content ID system that basically gives a first pass on your video to see if you violated any video or audio copyrights. And it tends to be not as, I would say, in-depth as obviously a manual review. So I've had several videos where I've uploaded them, everything looks great, there's no violations, and I just post them and everybody's happy and we're good to go. And then an hour, 2 days later, YouTube will come back and I'll get an email and it says your video has been taken down because we've done a manual review and we have found that it actually violates this copyright, that copyright, whatever. And then it becomes this lengthy process of going point by point with YouTube while they go through with a fine-tooth comb and try to get the video ready to put out there to where I'm not violating anything and the owners of the content are happy and et cetera, et cetera. So that's actually kind of how I picked the time. I really apologize if it's not conducive to where you live. Please hang in there. Please watch the videos when you get a chance. Turn on the notification bell. That way you have a notification there when I have uploaded them and you can see. I certainly would appreciate that. For those of you like Witch from the North and the others who come around the next day or later to watch the videos, I certainly appreciate that. Thank you. Next, we have the Sweetie Gamer. Sweetie Gamer is also so good about leaving comments on almost every video. Fun fact. The missing Entwives is the greatest unanswered question within all of Tolkien's writings. It was the one mystery he did not want to explore because he enjoyed it being just that, a mystery. I love that. And I love that that is the intent, that it is meant to be that way. Several of you made this comment in one way or another, the point about the Entwives being just this sort of unsolved thing. So I love that. So thank you for telling me that, Sweetie Gamer. And for all the rest of you who said it as well, I like that there's a mystery hanging out there that we just don't know. Amber.42 writes, the scene is in your video, but oh God, here we go. I think you will all be familiar with this one. But Viggo's scream when he kicks the helmet was real. He broke his toe. If you look back, you realize there was humor in the first movie, but it was mostly at the expense of Merry and Pippin and their childish antics. The fireworks, stealing the crops, Aragorn throwing the apple, even sword training with Boromir. In fact, Pippin is only 29 and hobbits come of age at 33. So compared to humans, he's just in his teens. Okay, so the main reason I pulled that comment was because of the kicking the helmet part of it. I think that was probably the most mentioned thing, not even just in this video. You guys continued to mention it, and maybe not you guys, but some people continue to mention it even in Return of the King. So that was the one thing where I didn't realize, and somebody else wrote, this guy is legit because he didn't include the scene of the helmet. And I didn't. I mean, I didn't know it at the time. I didn't realize what was going on. It seemed like a dramatic moment, but I know that there was behind the scenes stuff going on. So yeah, that was something that was really interesting to learn. And I definitely appreciate you guys sharing that with me. But one thing that I wanted to also comment about, similar to what I just said about sort of the mechanics of how I choose what to include and how the videos go up and what goes into me making them. Yeah, if you guys knew how long the videos were when I do my first draft of them, so to speak, versus what actually goes up on YouTube later, I have to cut so much content out to be able to not violate copyright. And I said this, I think, in the Fellowship video, but if I didn't, I'll say it again. It feels blasphemous. That's the word I've used because I have such respect for this material. And I want to include it all. And, I know this will be in the past when it finally comes around, although Hobbit probably should be there. But when I finally get a chance to do the Patreon, I want to really make sure that we get the full reactions in there to these films. So you guys can hear all the comments, see my real reaction to everything I see, and I can leave it all in because I'm not actually providing any of the source material like I have to do with YouTube. So I certainly appreciate you guys being understanding about that. But yeah, the kicking the helmet thing, that was pretty cool. I didn't know that until you guys told me. Next up is Michelle Peace. What's up, Michelle? Arwen is my girl. I love her. Girlfriend is a Texas girl in my heart and one of my favorite badasses of all time. Could not agree more. I love her as well. In fact, I had no idea. And I think I said this in the last video. I know I've said it in the comments before. I am watching these films, obviously 20 years later, and they are so well done. They are so well produced. They are so well digitally enhanced and whatnot that I forget they're 20 years old. So I didn't even recognize that it was Miranda Otto who plays Aunt Zelda in Sabrina, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Didn't even recognize her because she's so young in this. And she's beautiful, still beautiful to this day. But I had no idea that was her. So now I love her for two things. I agree with you, Michelle. I love everything they did with that character. We'll probably get a little bit more into that with Return of the King when I say my comments about some of those comments. But yeah, I agree with you. Yassine Barris. There is very much FPS drop or frames per second drop in the movie part of the screen. Yes. And thank you guys for holding in there. Again, going back to some of the technical aspects of making these videos, I'm learning. No one has taught me. I am an actor without a script, so to speak. And I've been using OBS, which any of you who are familiar with that know. It's a way to like record what's on your screen to capture the movies, the film, so I can show you and do the picture in picture. But up until I learned how to do it properly, I was using a window capture for the window where I was playing the movie on my computer. And for whatever reason, that was causing a lag and for there to be frames per second droppage. So what that means is, from a non-technical perspective, if you watch the playback, it looks very jerky, right? It looks like it's old school. Thankfully, I've learned now what the mistake was and I've fixed it. So in all videos going forward, and I think you would have seen this if you've seen the following Lord of the Rings videos as well as the others, it's been fixed. But thank you so much to all of you who have held in there during those glitchy playbacks that I've had. Thank you. So actually, I kind of think they helped me with not getting into copyright issues because I didn't seem to have a lot of problems till recently. But anyway, I think it's worth it because the smooth playback is definitely preferred to the jerky. So thank you guys. Okay, next up we have John Cohen. Merry and Pippin really start to come into their own. Their smarts start to come out in the second half. I can't wait. I can't wait either. I agree with you. I thought they were amazing. I had seen Dominic Monaghan in Lost as Charlie, and Lord knows he had a good decade with this and that. But I had seen him before, but obviously in that role, which is very different than this one. And then I had not seen Billy Boyd, I don't think, in anything. So watching the two of them in this, and with this character being so different than the one that Dominic played in Lost, it's almost like I didn't recognize him at all. Okay, so obviously I recognize his face, but just in the sense of the characters that were so different in the way they were played, I loved the development of those two characters. And kind of like who was it that said that earlier? Amber, I think. Yeah, kind of what Amber was saying about how they are in the beginning versus how they develop as the films go on. Oh my God. So fun. But they never lost their, I guess you'd say, twinkle in the eye, right? Even in the darkest times, they were so good for a little bit of levity. Even though they've grown and they've matured, sure, they've been through some definitely, but they've still maintained who they are, and who they are is amazing. So I was glad to see that. Next up is Jeremiah Alonso. Hey, David, it's funny you have frustrations about jumping between characters. The books have you stay with one group for the entire half of the book before it finally gets to the other group. So it's sort of like how the books and movies have the opposite problems. I mean it in a good way. So yeah, I agree. I made a comment. What he's talking about, if you guys don't recall, is that I get really into what's happening and then we jump. I get so into what's going on with this character, with this storyline, the action, whatever, and then we move to something else. And from what I understand, several of you said this, several of you made this comment, but from what Jeremiah is saying, as I understand it, is that the books kind of finish out whatever we're talking about at that moment or reading about at that moment before moving on to something else. So, I kind of false complain, I would say, if I'm being honest, because that technique of jumping between scenes maintains the interest, and I never feel bored, and I never feel like, okay, this is getting long, let's move on to something else at all. So yeah. Hans Grunberg. I love Hans. Hans also watches a lot of videos, makes comments all the time. So thank you, Hans. I strongly recommend to rewatch the trilogy in a month or two. Then you will have more time to follow all turns. And then you take the marathon with all movies in a row in a year or so. Yeah, that's going to be a given. That is going to be a given because I love these movies. Like I said at the beginning, a level 10. And if you've seen videos I've watched, I have been fortunate enough so far to pick really great films for the channel. I have been very lucky in the recommendations that you guys have given me that I've liked them. I've been very lucky that the ones I picked on my own have been great. So I know it seems like I'm an easy sell, but trust me, there are things I hate. There are things I think are really dumb that I don't want to watch any more of. And it's just a foregone conclusion at this point that I will be watching these films every year, at least once a year, because I love the characters and I'm really gonna miss them. I mean, why do you think I'm dragging this out? You know what I mean? Why do you think we're doing this? It's like, yeah, I definitely want to talk about your comments and get further into it, but why do you think that is? Because A, I love you guys, and B, I love this material. It's hard for me to let go of it. I'm looking forward to Hobbit, but I mean, you guys are kind of scaring me on that a little bit, you know, saying that it's gonna suck and it's not as good as Lord of the Rings. I know what you mean. But yeah, I mean, I really got into these characters. So I definitely agree with Hans. I think that this is something I'll be watching definitely every year, if not in a marathon style, every few months, I'm sure. Oh, Mike Larson. Hi, Mike. Mike writes, he says meaning me, he says he needs a Lord of the Rings advisor by his side. And what he's talking about is that in the beginning I said, I feel like I need a Lord of the Rings advisor because I can't keep up sometimes with like names and places and there's so much happening. So it's a challenge. But he writes, has he ever heard of books? The books by Tolkien are even better than the movies, which leave out a lot. But I realize many mere movie fans, he's talking about me I assume still, have trouble reading. He could use the audiobooks if his reading skills aren't up to much. Thanks, Mike. So this was the negative comment I was talking about. And I always say, I welcome all comments. I have not deleted that comment. It's not even that bad, honestly, given what I've seen on some people's pages or in their comment sections of their videos. But yeah, just to answer your question, this is a movie reaction channel. And it's my intention to show films. And even if they're based on books, and even though a lot of you guys have said you would like for me to do a reaction if I do read the books, that might be something in the future to get into. But at this point, it's a movie reactions channel. I'm watching a movie and reacting to it. That's kind of how I see my job, so to speak. So even though I can read, I don't think it'd be very interesting to read along while I'm watching a movie. It seems like it'd be a very boring video. But I appreciate your comment nonetheless, and I appreciate the feedback. So we'll move on to the next one now. Ardbeigirl, girl, I think is how you say it. I'm so sorry. AARDBEIGIRL. David, great reaction to Lord of the Rings. Thank you. Now you really have to catch up to Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit since the series is coming September 2nd, 2022, The Rings of Power. Oh Lord, have there been a lot of comments from you guys? And I'm not talking about just the sweet little, hey, there's a series coming up. No, it ranges from on the nice end, I might watch the series, to on the other end, how dare they release this and insult Tolkien's memory and all he stood for. I mean, it's really, really, really polarizing. I'll probably watch because I like any time there's some drama, and it sounds like there's gonna be some drama around this series, meaning like, you know, off screen, not talking about the drama within the series. I'm talking about people talking about it. I don't want to be left out of that party, so I definitely will probably watch. But yeah, I'm not really having any expectations going into it. I have tempered expectations for The Hobbit. I can't imagine not liking it on some level. I'm definitely not expecting it to be on the level of Lord of the Rings. But for the series, yeah, I don't know what to expect. So I'll go into it blind, but you know, we'll definitely have some fun with that one, I'm sure. Irreverent Ian, I love that name, Irreverent Ian. Irreverent Ian writes, a late comment I know, but a quick flick through tells me as unlikely anyone has said, Treebeard, Tolkien based on his great friend C.S. Lewis, who also taught at Oxford and who could be heard coming to lectures by his, and wait for the impression, home, I know, dead on right, echoing voice in the quarter. Okay, so I actually read this from several of you guys that Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were friends. I read the Narnia books, I saw the Narnia movies, and I actually also saw a movie called Shadowlands with Anthony Hopkins and Deborah Winger, which if you guys haven't seen it, is, I thought, very good, about C.S. Lewis. But I didn't catch that he was friends with Tolkien. And I didn't know until you guys told me that that's actually who Treebeard was based on. So I thought that was a fun little factoid. You guys, if you know me by now, you know I love stuff like that. So that was fun to read. So thank you, Irreverend Ian, for that comment. Okay, so next, and again, this one I'm not sure if I'm going to say it right, so sorry. Toodles K comments on both my Harry Potter and my Lord of the Rings video, so thank you so much for both of those. And always has great things to say. I always find the comments so engaging and so informative, and this is no different. In the books, Faramir was never even tempted by the ring, and he and his men didn't abuse Gollum, which I'm glad to hear that. He gave Frodo and Sam food, a safe place to rest, and advice when they parted company on different journeys. Of course, in the books, Gollum also never really had extra sympathy, inducing his good side either. Sure, you felt a little bit sorry for him, but you never really trusted him. Again, what a great informative comment. I would never known that. I think several of you, though, did make the note that Faramir was not as he was portrayed in the books as in the movies. And I know that there's just creative license taken, of course, in the films, with different things. But this was a really good comment because I like to know those differences. And I know, and especially Michael would say this, I need to read the books, right? And I need to sort of get my own opinions about things and compare and contrast with the films that way. But until then, I really like information like this because I would have never known otherwise. So thank you, Toodleskay, for that. Okay, and we're getting closer to the end, I promise. But there's just so much good stuff. How can you stop? Next up, Brianna. Viggo actually chipped his front tooth in the battle. He just wanted to super glue it and keep going, but Peter was like, no, you're going to the dentist and getting it fixed properly. Everybody talked about kicking the helmet. I don't remember reading much about this with the front tooth. That to me is like, poor Viggo. What the hell, dude? Like, he went through so much. And like, I mean, you do what you can for your craft. And so, yeah, I mean, kudos to him for hanging in there because I can't even imagine. Oh my God. Yeah. Anyway, Matthew Maloshe, Treebeard was modeled after C.S. Lewis because he and Tolkien were good friends, which we just said. Right. And the professor from Narnia was modeled after Tolkien. Apparently, C.S. Lewis took forever to get to the point when he talked. So this one kind of like piggybacks or kind of supplements the comment that I was reading previously. But yeah, I didn't know that the professor from Narnia was modeled after Tolkien. So I think that's so cool that they were friends and gave a nod to each other in their works because I think in real life, all of us would do that, right? You have some people that are like, oh no, I keep my work separate from my friends and personal. But I like when you can give nods to each other like that. That's pretty cool. Patrick Fuchs writes, Denethor, the father of Boromir and Faramir, actually has the same orb as seen on Saruman. Originally, there are 7 of them. But since Sauron has one too, he was able to manipulate others who try to gather information through them. So Faramir's father isn't being a jerk to him just because. Yeah, thanks for letting me know this. I kind of thought that when I was watching it. First off, I thought I was just being an ass. But several of you made comments similar to this as Patrick did, kind of explaining where the behavior comes from. So thank you. I really appreciate that. He also writes, and the love story between Aragorn and Arwen is actually just an appendix in the books. But they did a great job incorporating into the story to provide info that is originally given by characters that were cut from the movies. Plus the scenes with the two and the necklace are also used in reference to how well things are going overall. That was also a great comment. I really appreciated that. I liked the scenes with Aragorn and Arwen, and I read from other comments you guys wrote that this was kind of, not really a major part of the books. But I enjoyed it in the films. It was one of the aspects I liked. So, yeah. This one comes from Ferris Ulf. See, this is why we wanted you to watch extended editions, right? The scenes of Boromir were not included in the theatrical version. I love that you love the Ents, which I do. I love the Ents. They are actually mostly practical effects, which is impressive. Yes, it is. The scene where Isengard is flooded is practical effects as well. They built a small model and flooded it. Helm's Deep took 4 months to film. Yeah, I believe it. They had t-shirts that said, I survived Helm's Deep for the cast and crew that worked on it. And I want one of those. The feeling of dread you mentioned for the Helm's Deep scene was palpable in the theaters. The whole place shook with the marching and the banging of the spears on the ground. It was an incredible experience. In the books, the elves did not come to help, as war is brewing in many other places as well. Plus, they're leaving Middle-earth. It's a change in the movies that I really appreciated. Yeah, same here. And I have to say, I love that comment because I, as you know, said in the beginning, I really enjoyed the Helm's Deep battle scenes. But oh my God, the scenes of Isengard, I do have a soft spot for the Ents, and seeing the trees come in, and then seeing seeing the Ents come in rather, and seeing the deforestation and just that feeling of rage and anger, which, of course comes across very, very deliberately and quietly because, Treebeard's not known for his antics. But yeah, I really thought that was well done. And so I appreciate Ferris Ulf giving me that background information. Baskerville B. Noticed that Treebeard's voice was Gimli, After the movie, Viggo bought the rescue horse for keeps. Also, one of the stable girls fell in love with one of the white horses. Very expensive. Viggo bought it and gave it to her. He bought his favorite horse from Hidalgo too. Yeah, I mean, again, I know Viggo just shits gold. He's an amazing guy, and we've said that over and over, and I can't say enough because I love him. Yes. But several of you mentioned that about the horses, and I think that is just so amazing. I love hearing stories like that. He's right up there with Keanu Reeves in my book as far as kindness and not having airs about him from what I've understood of how he is. And the part about Treebeard's voice being Gimli, oh my God, you guys are still telling me that. Like, even in like Return of the King, people are saying it. And I love knowing that because I would not have caught it otherwise. Oh, and then here we go. Ember 12, same thing. John Rhys Davies is also the voice for Treebeard. He's a very underrated character in Lord of the Rings. I agree. Yeah, it's worth saying twice because you guys told me so many times. So yeah, we can definitely do 2 comments for that one. Thank you, Ember 12. Sam C95. You praise comment recommendations. So have you ever seen the Hunger Games franchise? Very worth your time and reaction if not. Okay, so I pulled this comment again, sort of to talk about the channel in general, right? Yes, I love that you guys give me recommendations in the comments. I pull so many movies from those. I have noted every single movie that you guys have recommended. I know it seems like sometimes I haven't because I don't watch them, but I do have a list of movies I'm trying to work through. I kind of have an idea of what I want to do with the channel as far as structuring some variety and then mixing in the things that I really want to see. And I wish I could watch Hunger Games. Hunger Games I've seen. And it's not just that I've seen it, I actually remember it. So it wouldn't be a genuine first time reaction, although I wish I could. If I ever get enough time, I would like to watch things that I have seen. I've done it a few times, especially on Christmas with Home Alone, with Christmas Vacation, Scream, and Halloween. And I made it very clear this is not a first time reaction, more of just a commentary. So I'm not beyond doing that, but at this time, I want to get so many movies I haven't seen under my belt, and it would be a lot of time to devote to Hunger Games. So I don't think I'll do it right now, but it's definitely on my list because I love Hunger Games and I love J-Law, and I want to see that again because it has been a while. So thank you, Sam C95, for recommending it. I have noted it, and I will definitely give it some thought for the future. LV Marty. I really love your reactions to this trilogy, David. Oh, thank you. How could you not? I'm really wonderful. I mean, you know. Your face does not betray much of what you are feeling. I'm sure you're talking about the resting bitch face. I'm aware. But I'm starting to read you a little bit better. Those of us who have loved Tolkien stories are a bit protective lot. So the fact that you are impressed so far is heartening. Your journey continues. I love this comment, and I really appreciate you saying that, LV Marty. I know you guys are very protective of these movies, and I've actually seen how protective because of the comments that you've left. And I would say that, you know, I love the films, but I respect you guys, and it's not just lip service. I've said in the past that, you know, YouTube is a free service. Okay. Unless you go with premium or something like that, I know, but for the most part, YouTube is free. It costs you nothing to come in and watch these videos that I put up. And that is free money wise, but it is not free time wise. And time is by far the greatest commodity. So I am definitely always conscious that you guys are giving some of that time to my videos, and listening to my thoughts on these films that you've seen so many times. And I cannot tell you how much A, I appreciate that, but B, how much I value that. So I don't want to waste your time. I know I make my little jokes. I know I make my little comments. That's just who I am. That's just my default. But never question the fact that I appreciate you guys watching this, and I appreciate you giving some of that time to me. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And thank you, LV Marty, for that really amazing comment. That means a lot. Ian or Ian West C. 1046. Oh, like the timestamp, 1046. Just keep that cloth where it needs to be. Oh, God, yes. I can confirm that the model of Gollum used in the movies was built to be anatomically accurate. Okay, I need to know how you can confirm that because I don't want to see it if you have something, but I just want to know how you can confirm that it's anatomically accurate because I mean, I don't know if this was a thing with Andy Serkis or I made a little joke, right, about keeping the cloth where it needs to be because it almost became like this little game I would play watching Gollum. Like he would just move and then the cloth would kind of move with him. And I'm like, okay, just make sure we don't have like a kind of a blow up or something like that, you know, because I don't want to see baby Gollum. And so that I just found so interesting because he was like, I can confirm. It's almost like he's got it on authority. I can confirm he was built to be anatomically accurate. I need more info on that. Just letting you know. This is another person, Teddy Barris, who is just, I mean, what can you say? One of the best people I know. And Teddy writes, "Chase me, good luck, bitches." I was talking about some things I wrote. So I remember things I said, so I won't repeat that because, you've seen the video, it's in there. But she writes, "And from the three of us all still watching, you're welcome." And this is exactly why I pulled this comment. She goes on to say other things, which you can see on the screen. But the main reason I pull it, Teddy's so great. Teddy always leaves the best comments. She really is someone that I like quite a bit. And Teddy notes that about the three of us still watching because I made a comment at the end. Thank you to the three of you who are still watching. Because I feel like a lot of people don't watch the very ends of these videos. I do. When I'm watching other people's videos, I watch the end. There is information there. In mine, I can tell you anyway. Things I say, comments I make, insights, things like that. So for those of you who always stick around to the end of the video, kind of like now actually, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It means a lot. It means a lot. Last two. Jamie Shepard. Sam's speech at the end is breathtaking. Okay, I pulled this comment for a couple reasons. Let me tell you why. A, yes, I agree, 100%. B, the fact that, and someone else made this comment as well, I believe. The fact that you've watched this movie that is so long and so good. And then we get to the end and Sean Astin steps up like, "Let me take the mic. I'm going to make a little speech." And you don't sit there and go, "Holy shit, my bladder is about to just burst. We really don't have time for this." No, I'm sitting there watching every line. And it was like so difficult because, again, with the copyright restrictions, he's talking for a long time. And it's just so good. And I don't want to cut any of it, but I have to. But yeah, I just want to let you guys know that I love that speech. And another reason I pulled this comment to make a note about that speech in particular, because there were some good speeches in all the films, is because Sean Astin, not my favorite person. I watched Rudy. I've seen Goonies. He's not my favorite actor. I don't know why. In Stranger Things, he's done nothing wrong. I've done nothing wrong. He's just not someone that I just really usually get into. This movie has made me like, I will move next door to him. I will move next door to him and I will say hello when I see him on the street because I just have such a respect for him from this role. And now I have to say it's going to be how I see him probably for the rest of my life. I will always look at Sean Astin and think, "Oh, Sam." But yeah, I thought the speech was amazing. I agree with you, Jamie. So good. So good. And last but not least, one of my BFFs, Cody. Cody writes, "LOL, I was one of the three left by the end. I LOL'd your comments a few times. Thanks for the laughs." And again, I pulled that to say, here we are at the end. Thank you so much for those of you who have watched. I certainly appreciate when you hang in there. I know you're going to click away. I would too. I know it's been going a long time. We've been going for almost an hour now. But you guys have no idea how much this has meant to me, being able to share this series with you. Two Towers. I mean, like I said, it was my second favorite after Return of the King. And if it weren't for Return of the King, it would have been my favorite because of specifically the journey. We didn't even get to the dead people in the water. Oh my God, the dead people in the water. That was freaky, the bog, And I read several of you talked about how behind the scenes, they flooded a parking lot to do that. Totally amazing. But yeah, I really have to say the Battle of Helm's Deep, all the scenes at Isengard, just so amazing. This movie was so great. And your comments made it even better. Without the information you guys provided, I would have had half the experience I had watching it. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. As I always say, if you found value in this video, please give it a like. If you haven't subscribed and you want to see more content like this, please subscribe. This is what YouTube uses to know that people are responding. And it's how good folks like you find my videos, because otherwise it just goes into that ether sphere out there and no one knows they're even there. So there might be others like you that want to see it. So I certainly would appreciate if you're enjoying the videos, give it a subscribe. Either way, thank you again. You guys have an amazing week and I will see you in the next video.